Hello, Canucks and Flames fans, and I can't call this an episode of Canucks Conversation. It's another edition of the pre-game crossover here at the Nation Network between today, Flames Nation, and Canucks Army. I'll host today, Daivd Quadrelli, alongside FlamesNation.ca managing editor, Ryan Pike. Ryan, thanks for joining me. It's going to be fun. Did you see, and I don't blame you if you did you see what Tyler Yaremchuk and I did over the weekend?
I saw a bit of it. I didn't see too much of it, but I
No
saw a bit of
worries.
it. There's a lot of stuff going on this weekend.
There is a lot of stuff going on this weekend, but for those that missed the first one, this is the crossover episode. Tyler and I tried it over the weekend for Canucks versus Oilers, and now Ryan and I are going to do it for Canucks versus Flames. So let's get into it. It's the November 12th game. We're recording this the morning of November 12th. Both teams have yet to have their morning skates, but the Canucks didn't have a day off after their loss against the Oilers, so we've seen practice lines. We have a pretty good sense that tonight is going to be the NHL debut of Jonathan Lekkerimäki, which obviously Canucks fans are very excited about. We'll touch on that more on today's episode of Canucks Conversation, which is live here at the Canucks Army YouTube channel at 2 p.m. and available wherever you get your podcasts a little bit after that. But for the crossover, we don't focus on little stuff like that, like NHL debuts and whatnot. We focus on four core questions. So let's get to the first one. Ryan, what's been the most surprising positive part about the Flames' start to the season? They got off to a heater at the start of the season. What's the most positive thing about it?
If I have to single out one thing, I'm going to point to the goaltending. The Flames very famously parted ways with Jacob Markstrom prior to the NHL draft. He went to the New Jersey Devils, and his duties were picked up by a combination of Dan Vladar, his previous backup, and Dustin Wolf, who's been lauded by many as the Flames goaltender of the future. And the thought process was, okay, they'll probably take a step back in goaltending. Nothing against the two guys stepping in, but you replace a guy who was a legitimate Vezina candidate for most of his tenure with the Flames with two guys that, all due respect, aren't. It'd be natural for them to take a step back. They haven't taken a step back. The Flames have probably two games that they look at and go, ooh, those weren't good. They got stomped by Utah and Vegas in consecutive games. But aside from that, they've gotten very good goaltending. Speak of the Devil, a night ago, Dustin Wolf was pitching a shutout till about 2.5 minutes left in the game, and very nearly kept a puck in midair from going over the line. It took a very lengthy video review to break his shutout, and that's been kind of what the Flames have gotten this year. They've gotten very strong goaltending from two guys that they were really hoping that they would make some progress. I don't think they anticipated their progress to be this rapid.
Interesting that you point to the goaltending, because I'm trying to answer the question about the Canucks as well, and it's hard to say that goaltending isn't also the answer for the Canucks, because the Canucks haven't found their fastball yet, right? Like, they haven't found their A game just yet, and Kevin Lankinen's gotten them points in those games where they haven't necessarily been great in front of him. I think the most positive part, I guess, if I say surprising positive, like, it's not a surprise that Quinn Hughes is great, but that's also a really important story here, is that Quinn Hughes is somehow playing even better than he was last year when he was quite literally the NHL's best defenseman. So that's certainly a positive story, but surprising, I think it's Kevin Lankinen. Like, I don't think anybody, and I mean, I was very high on Kevin Lankinen all offseason, and then once they actually signed him, I'm a big Kevin Lankinen guy. I'm surprised at how well he's playing. Like, I knew he was good, but I didn't know he was top 5 save percentage in the NHL good. Had a bit of a hiccup against the Edmonton Oilers, and that's actually an interesting wrinkle for tonight's game, Pike, is that the Canucks sent down Artur Shilovs to get a start in Abbotsford because they played a back-to-back against the Bakersfield Condors. Gave Shilovs that start down in Abbotsford. It was his first start in like 2 weeks or something, or a week and a half. So now, like, he's had some game action. Do they go to Shilovs tonight? Maybe that was a sign for the Canucks that Kevin Lankinen might be close to breaking down after you've played him so much. So I wonder if they decide to go to Shilovs. Lankinen has never started as many games as he has for the Canucks. It's been a rocky start to the season for Shilovs. I'll be interested to see who they go to tonight. But big picture, Pike, what's been the most disappointing part of the Flames season to this point? Like, obviously they went on that little skid after that heater that we just talked about.
Well, I mean, on paper, I think everyone sort of hoped or anticipated that the Flames, 5-on-5, they'd probably grind out games and be about even. And then they'd win or lose games based on their special teams. Last year they had a power play that was pretty disappointing. They changed up some of their personnel. They changed up their coaching staff a bit to put some new blood on the power play. And their penalty kill's been pretty much good to very good since Ryan Huska took it over in 2018. It's been almost the opposite. The Flames 5-on-5 play has been very, very good, arguably the strength of their game. And their special teams, I think, going into tonight are bottom 5 or bottom 6 both. So if you were hoping, man, the Flames, they'll have something to hang their hats on in special teams, they're hatless right now because both their penalty kill and power play have found ways to sort of just sap momentum at key times. And, I think that's something that's if they have any kind of inclination towards being a playoff team, we'll see. But if they have hopes and dreams, typically playoff teams don't have power plays that are this bad or penalty kills that are this bad, let alone both of them.
That's bad news for the Canucks because the power play's also been awful to start the year. The Canucks power play, again, not to use the same phrase that I just used, but they haven't found their fastball. They have not figured out how to score with the man advantage, and it's kind of a continuation of last year. I think that's the disappointing thing for Canucks fans. But look, when we say most disappointing thing to start the year, it's probably a combination of Elias Pettersson and the power play. I said it was undoubtedly Elias Pettersson, but he's starting to turn his game around slowly but surely. Like he had his best game of the season. Shocker. He had a statement game in a 7-3 loss, so that was tough to kind of hang your hat on. But Elias Pettersson did play well against the Edmonton Oilers, and he's had a few games here. There's a turning point that I want to point out. I'm not sure if you saw this on Twitter, Pike. Someone posted a picture in Anaheim of their son, who I think her son was about 4 or 5 years old maybe, and she tweeted about the interaction that her son had with Elias Pettersson, and he said, "Petey, you're my hero." And Pettersson said, "Really?" And it's like, if that's his turning point this year, that would be the best. It's like, just remembering that there's kids out there that are like, you know what? This guy's my hero no matter how bad he's playing, no matter how much the temperature in the market turns up. There's kids out there. And I know some people call me one of those kids, but there's kids out there that are just rooting for Elias Pettersson. So, look, if it's his turning point, that's great. I would love if that was the story. But again, to this juncture, yeah, he's been a disappointment this season. But the power play, yes, the power play has not been good enough. We'll see if they can turn that around starting tonight against Flames, who have a horrible penalty kill, although the Canucks penalty kill has been good. Okay, any injury updates from your side? We have a few on the Canucks side.
Yes, Flames announced on Monday after morning skate that Anthony Mantha, who was injured last week, unfortunately enough, playing pretty close to his hometown in Montreal, he clashed behind the net with Emil Heineman and left the game. And turns out he blew out his ACL and he's out for the season. Mantha was a guy that the Flames added in the offseason. If you're being cynical, the Flames have a few UFAs that they might divest themselves of at the deadline for picks, as they did last year, the year before. But they have, they wanted to insulate some of their young guys by adding some key veterans. And, one of them was Anthony Mantha. And unfortunately, right when Anthony Mantha seemed to be sort of getting his feet under him, blew out his knee. So it's unfortunate because he's a guy that, when he's on his game, we saw case in point, season opener against Vancouver, Anthony Mantha was a menace. Fighting, he very famously basically chased JT Miller around for the entire first period until they finally fought. He scored a really nice breakaway goal. He was all over the place in that game. When he's on his game, he's that damn good. And unfortunately, he sort of struggled with consistency as he has in his career. But the Flames really liked Mantha's A game when he had it, and it's a fairly significant loss for them, but it's also really going to allow them to sort of lean on some of the younger players a bit. So hopefully Anthony Mantha has a full recovery. He's 30. This was sort of a rebuild year for him in terms of boosting up his stock before going into free agency potentially this offseason with a boosted cap, and it's not going to work out, unfortunately, the way I think the Flames or Mantha hoped.
Okay, on the Canucks side, a few things. Brock Besser, you all saw the hit, the Tanner Jeannot hit. Brock Besser's out with an upper body injury. I think we can all guess which part of the body he's suffering an injury to. I think it might be neck and above. And in all seriousness, with concussions, like I know everybody wants an update, and there was a whole thing in Vancouver yesterday with Rick Tocchet muttering the words day to day, and then that getting anyways, long story, but basically with a concussion, you have your steps, right? Like you have your steps that you have to go through. You have to go 24 hours symptom free. Okay, once you do that, let's see what happens next. Then you're ramping up your workouts. That's how recovery from concussion works. There's not going to be updates.
If they think you have concussion, the way the NHL's protocol is written, it's basically an 8-day step. The first day is do nothing and we'll see if you have any symptoms. And then there's 7 steps from there, they ratchet you up. So if you want to get technical, he is day to day, because if he's going through each step, he is going through them day to day. But it's also not a very satisfying answer for fans that want to know when one of Vancouver's best players is back.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, people want the updates. I get it. Brock Besser is recovering, and I get why they're saying upper body injury. Brock Besser's recovering from a concussion, folks. Like, he's recovering from a concussion. Let's just get that out there. You need to be patient with a recovery from a concussion. It's nothing, obviously, as we know in Vancouver as well, it's nothing to just rush or, try and get back in a hurry from. So, no real update on Brock Besser, I guess, is what we should say. Dakota Joshua, he's been skating. He's been ramping it up. He was a full participant in the last 2 practices. Took line rushes, took them on the 4th line alongside Atu Ratu and Nils Höglander. We posted that raw footage over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel on Monday. Could he be in the lineup? Maybe. The big thing for Joshua Pike is that he's recovered. Obviously, he's recovering from the testicular cancer surgery. And the big thing he said was, like, he's fully recovered from that surgery. He's not feeling anything, with regards to his surgery or his recovery. What he's feeling is out of shape. And he basically said, like, I need to be able to get to a point where I'm able to make an impact, not just come on the ice and play and do okay. Like, he wants to practice enough so that he feels ready to make an impact the minute he steps into the lineup. So I think that's what he's kind of waiting for as he nears a return. He could be in the lineup tonight. We don't know for sure. If he is, it'll be a much anticipated return, of course, and it'll be the much anticipated debut of Jonathan Lekkerimäki as well, who was, and the reason I bring him up in this segment is because he was banged up a little bit. He could have made his debut on Saturday night against the Oilers, probably was an option, I think is what Alvin said, and they decided not to because he got dinged up a little bit, either in a practice or in a game in the days leading up, but he was good to go for practice the next day. So Lekkerimäki expected to make his debut tonight on a line with JT Miller and Jake DeBrusk. So he's going to be getting a chance right off the hop. Other injury updates, Thatcher Demko, nothing's really changed here. We've talked about it. He's continuing to practice. I did notice him doing the RVH, doing it on his right leg. It's still cool that he's doing it on his right leg. I have not seen, and maybe I haven't, been told, or maybe it's just I haven't seen it. Maybe he's done it, but all I can tell you is that I haven't seen him pop into the reverse VH on his left knee, or on his left leg, rather, his left side. And obviously that's the movement that caused him the popliteus injury that he's dealing with right now. So we await the return of Thatcher Demko. He continues to practice with the team. We'll see how his progression goes. Okay, Pike, just as we wrap up, again, big picture here. The Flames offseason additions. How have they worked out? How much are the Flames offseason additions to thank for that awesome start they got off to?
Honestly, a little bit. It's sort of been a do it by committee Flames team. I mean, I don't think it's disparaging to the hockey club to claim that they probably don't have the offensive star power that a Canucks team has, but they've done a lot of interesting things. They brought back former Flame Ryan Lomberg, formerly of the Florida Panthers, who Flames fans most notably remember as beating the Edmonton Oilers for a Stanley Cup, which between that and his great hair automatically makes Ryan Lomberg a fan favorite in Calgary. So he's back. Justin Kirkland came up when Kevin Rooney was injured early in the season. Ironically enough, in that Vancouver game that caused the shenanigans with Mantha and Miller, but Kirkland has really grabbed hold of it, so he's pretty much going to be on the team for the foreseeable future because his waiver exemption ran out because he played too much because he was too good. But Kirkland was previously with Tucson and Anaheim before he came back to the Flames, so he's back and he looks like he might be a full timer now. Which is kind of cool for a guy who is 27, 28 years old and sort of took the scenic route to the NHL. We've also seen some defensive additions. Tyson Barrie, the Flames added after he joined the team on a PTO in training camp. He's been decent. He scored a few key goals, but he's also kind of Tyson Barrie in his own end. So he's been playing on the third pairing with Braden Pahal, who the Flames added last season. Jake Bean grew up in Calgary. He played for the Hitmen. He's sort of joined the team. He hasn't really been a regular this year. He and Barry have basically been swapping in and out depending on game situations. Kevin Ball, sneakily, they added Kevin Ball from New Jersey in the Jacob Markstrom trade along with the first rounder. Kevin Ball has been great. Kevin Ball is, I believe, in his second full year in the National Hockey League. He looks like he's 35 years old and has been doing this in his sleep. He's very big, very poised, and he knows he's big, and he's playing with Rasmus Andersson. And I was going to say, for surprising positive parts, Rasmus Andersson has gone from being pretty good to borderline excellent this year. And I think a lot of the credit for that has to go to his chemistry with Kevin Ball, where Kevin Ball is just sort of doing the Chris Tanev style of hockey, where he just takes care of his own end, plays physical, plays simple, and allows his partner to really emerge as the top flight defenseman the Flames had hoped he could be. So those are most of the additions. Dustin Wolf came up from the Wranglers last season, played a third of the year in the NHL. He's a full-timer this year. So they have a lot of guys that sort of were dipping their toes in the NHL last year who, because of some departures, have really gotten a chance to be full-timers this year. But in terms of additions from outside the organization, that's pretty much it.
Kevin Ball. There's a local connection there. New Westminster born Kevin Ball. Had to look up his hockey DB page. Did he like grow up in Vancouver? Is it one of those things where he was born there and then he moved away immediately?
I'm not sure.
We're going to go with it. We're going to go with it, Pike. We're going to go with it. Vancouver's own Kevin Ball. Friends and family in the crowd tonight. We don't know if that's true. Probably. Maybe, though.
If we believe it, it might become true.
If we believe it, it might become true, which is kind of how this pregame crossover came to be. We just had an idea, and we did it for the first time on Saturday. And in edition number 2, Pike, I think we did a bang-up job. I think you did a great job today. You were kind of thrown into the fire a little bit, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll close it out there. For my co-host, Ryan Pike, my name is Daivd Quadrelli. Thanks so much for listening to a pregame crossover edition between FlamesNation.ca and CanucksArmy.com.